I would like to introduce you to somebody who has a very meaningful life philosophy that I believe can serve you well. And that mantra, stop being disgusted with your life. Start doing things that matter and start creating meaning. Like that alone will create a broad smile that is a billboard that will attract people and opportunities like you have never seen in your life. And exemplifying this is Coach Katie. She moved across the country and expanded her business in a new town where she didn't know anybody. She had the conviction to raise her standards, to do things like stop drinking alcohol forever, and to start doing things that create joy in other people's lives from the moment that she greets them on a phone call. Someone with a great smile and a sunny disposition, and all of these were created intentionally, even down to the place where she wakes up every morning. She chose Florida because even when it's raining, it's sunny, she says. And she realized that that has a positive effect both on her environment and her attitude, and both matter and they combine to create a recipe for success. Katie loves to laugh and have fun, and she mentors realtors and other business people on a path of positive productivity. And we talk about this in our conversation and how leverage and empowerment can create margin for you and leadership opportunities for your team. So hey, if you're looking to learn or create opportunities for yourself or to grow professionally, you can always shoot over to the Worley Real Estate Network /podcast. Give us feedback on our show and also let us know what it is that you're looking for and how we can help connect you to powerful coaches and how you move the needle in your life. We truly want to see the good news in your life. So if you've had some good news or if something we've said on the show has affected you in a positive way, we would love to hear about it. It literally keeps us going all the time. We love good news. We love to hear from you, and we'd love to share these insights from Coach Katie. So Katie, tell us where you're hailing from today.
Yeah, so I'm coming to you live from Tampa, Florida, which I moved to a little less than a year ago. So I'm super excited to be here. And it's about 70 degrees today, which is amazing because hailing from Massachusetts originally, it's quite the change.
That's awesome. So I remember when you were moving to Florida, you said it was a little bit hectic. This was kind of like almost a year ago.
Yeah, it was almost a year ago. I moved last March. There was definitely a lot of moving parts. I lived in Massachusetts for 40 years. It's where all of my business was. So I have kind of two alter egos, is what I'm going to call them. Katie, the mortgage lady, and Coach Katie. And so I had built my mortgage business in North Central Massachusetts. So when I first told my realtor partners and my business partners that I was going to move, it was like, wait, what? Are you not going to do mortgages anymore? And to be honest, since COVID, everything's done remotely. I'm able to help my clients all over the United States, mainly in New England and Florida, but I wasn't meeting with anyone in person anyway, so it didn't really matter.
Let's talk about that for a second, because a lot of people. So first of all, let's talk about success with moving to a new market, and the new people, because I know a lot of real estate agents have started a brand new business in a new market, and we love to talk about like how to get started at that, because it totally applies to brand new people entering into a new industry, especially new real estate agents jumping in, and some of those tactics that they need. And so that's interesting that COVID really did. It opened us up. That allowed us to be more transient. And
Yes.
you are one of those cool statistics of people from the Northeast that moved to Florida. Like my parents moved to Florida a little over a year ago, and they're like, we don't know anybody from Florida. They're all from like New England and New York and all that. So tell me what it is. What is it about Florida that you just had to get down here, and why Florida and why now?
Yeah. So for me, it was more of this kind of internal calling. I'm going to call it God, call it whatever you want to call it, was just like Florida, Florida, Florida. So at the time, I didn't really know why. In retrospect, it makes a lot of sense. And I'll go over a little bit my journey over the past year, but
Please.
I was just feeling called. I love like the energy of it just being bright outside. So here's the thing about Florida, even on days that it's raining, it's bright. When you're
Really?
up north and it's raining, it's like, wah, wah. Like I can literally hear
Cloudy.
the sound of, yeah, it's like, you want to take a nap and curl up with a blanket, even if it's in the summer. It's just
Yeah.
raining. And like, it reminds me of Eeyore. If I had to put a character to a weather pattern, it's
Yeah.
Eeyore. But down here, it's like, even when it's rainy, it's bright. It's a different energy. And I needed that brightness. But I was also doing a lot more with coaching, and I wanted the ability to speak on stages. A lot of the events I was attending was in Florida. I wanted to create an environment where I could host retreats. So that's on my goal list for the next couple of years. So Florida just naturally seemed to be kind of that place to go. So it was kind of on a whim. I mean, when I told my friends and family, it was like, great, for how long? I'm like, no, for forever. I'm moving to Florida. So it was this exciting, scary thing because I had built an incredible mortgage business up north and I didn't know what that was going to translate to down here.
How has that gone for you? Keeping that business up there. Did you keep it up there?
I did, yeah. So my business is still primarily New England.
Okay.
I originally expected to get out there more down here, and the last year has really been more of a personal growth year for me than doing anything with business. So I just started getting back out in Florida and attending things like realtor association meetings and doing open houses, that kind of thing. But last year, to kind of give you an idea of how much growth I went through, I quit drinking. So it was something that was on my radar for a little bit. I wasn't a huge drinker, but I wasn't not a drinker. I would say I was a frequent drinker more than in excess. And I moved down here. I quit drinking. I went through the loss of my mom. So I just really personally was asking myself, what's important? Like, who am I? What do I want to do when I grow up? And, what does that involve? Does that involve mortgages? Does that involve coaching? Is it something I haven't even thought of yet? And so over the past year, I really honed in on paying attention to more of that and doing more of what I want to do for me.
What's funny is my daughter is 18 years old right now and has all the stress of, high school and what's next. And as she sits there and talks about it, I realize it's the same for me too at 48 years old. I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, look, that never goes away because we're always improving, we're always moving on to the next thing. And I want to dig into some of those topics that you mentioned there. Before we do, so first of all, it seems like you're in this really cool renewal rebirth phase. I mean, a lot of people at this part in their career are maybe burnt out. They're wondering why they're still doing what they're doing, looking for some purpose.
Yep.
You're not. It seems like you're in an active state. You're looking to go to those places where people are active, where personal growth is happening, and surrounding yourself with that tribe. What is it that's causing this sort of re-energizing for you? Did something happen, or did you just feel like you needed more out of life? You're just a high achiever. Get us into the
Yeah.
mind of Coach Katie.
So a couple things. I have a daughter who's 3. So when I was pregnant with her, like early in my pregnancy, I had some health issues and I almost lost her. And so it was a real awakening for me because I truly feel like I lost her and it was related to stress due to my job.
Mm.
Being in mortgages, there's a lot of moving parts, and I held a lot of that externally and internally as pressure. I had this pressure to perform. If my clients didn't get a house, it was all my fault. It was just, I put a lot of pressure on myself on how I handled my business. I handled everything myself. I had some people in the background, but I didn't really leverage them like I do now. Almost losing her, I realized, what am I even doing? Here I am, and I was an older mom. So let's say 3 years ago, I was like 38. And I was going to have this baby, and I had a 6-year-old at home. And I said, this isn't working for me. And I had just hired a coach, but I hadn't done much with him yet. And he was doing things more related to mindset. So in the past, all of the coaches I had hired were very tactical. Hey, go to X amount of open houses, or here's a script to when you're calling a new agent that you want to partner with, or do this, do that. Whereas this guy, and actually it was a guy by the name of Brian Damaso, who has since passed away. So may he rest in peace. But
I know
his,
Brian. Yeah, I was
yeah,
sorry to
he
hear
he
that.
was an incredible human being,
My
and he changed my life.
Kelly was going through TIR, thinking into results. And for people that don't know Brian Del Maso, he was a protege to Bob Proctor, and
Yes.
he was a member of a mastermind that Katie and I are both in, and actually was a very giving individual. Helped people with their mindset, and recently passed due to mental health issues. And so that's something that all of us are sort of mourning. This mental health is a major theme for a lot of us this month. Yeah, I know Brian, and talk to me a little bit more about some of the things that he helped you do, and the pathway that he helped.
He really just broke it down very simply. Hey, Katie, you can have all the success and more, and it doesn't have to be like this, the way you expect. All of my mentors had told me, you're going to have to give up your family. You're going to have to grind yourself into the ground. And good intentions, right? They wanted me to know what to expect if I wanted to see the success that I wanted. My goal was to do 55 million in loans in 1 year. And so everyone they knew who were doing that had to make those huge sacrifices. Well, what Brian told me is like, we're going to put the kibosh on thinking like that because it can be really, yeah. I have another mentor, WREN, who says it's simple and easy. And Brian really embodied that too. He didn't say those words, but he said, this doesn't have to be hard. It can be whatever you think it's going to be. And so he really taught me to pay attention to my thoughts and how that was creating my life.
This is interesting because a lot of us who want to make a massive change, we feel like, okay, I've got to get up at 5 a.m. I've got to work 80 hours a week instead of 40 hours a week. I've got to do all these things. And gosh, those things just create so much stress. And I don't know about you, but it seems like post-COVID, people's tolerance for the grind has gone way down. I mean, I know mine has, and I'm like on a quest for margin and for working smarter, not harder now. And it still seems difficult because I still have a lot of these, Gen Xers, I was taught by baby boomer parents, to show up early, stay late. And gosh, it's just, I mean, I still do. I'm usually, one of the last ones here at the office, trying to make sure I get everything done before I leave for the day so I can show up and not be a distracted dad or a distracted husband. So how have you tried to incorporate the high achieving and wanting more out of your life without exhausting yourself?
Yeah, that is definitely something that I struggled with, especially at first, and I've gotten better with over time. So some of the things I personally like to get up early and feel like a lot has happened. That wasn't how I always have been. So I would say if it doesn't feel like something you really want to do, don't do it.
Mm.
We all are told to do this, do that, do this. I'm on a health journey as well. And one of my coaches was like, great, eat turkey and rice and veggies every meal. Don't put any oil on the turkey. It's like, no offense, I'm 300 pounds. Like, I doubt that putting oil on my vegetables is my issue. Just being honest, right? It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's kind of laughable. And for me, I love food. So what I focused on is creating healthy meal alternatives, like are sustainable, that I enjoy, that I don't load with fat just to make them taste better. So I'm just taking a little bit of a different approach. If I follow what he said, I can be successful. I'm not saying I can't, but that doesn't feel right to me. So really focusing on the feeling behind what I'm doing too is like, well, what do I want to do? If I want to just focus in and I want to just eat turkey and rice and veggies, and I'm not saying you didn't have other options, but if that's what I want to do and that excites me because of the outcome, then do it. But if you're like, this sounds awful, like stop doing the things that sound awful and do them in a different way. I'm not saying you're going to
Yeah.
love everything that you do, but in general, I'm doing something because I'm enjoying it. And I enjoy waking up early because I get so much done and I love starting my day that way.
No doubt about it. And I think a lot of us, we get stressed and we feel like we have to do a bunch of the thing right now because that's going to make up for it. But I heard something one time that was like, look, you're not going to get fit by going into the gym and stressing yourself out and working out really, really hard for 2 hours. The 20 minutes a day of going to the gym or stepping on a treadmill or doing something that gives you that consistent feeling. And that's true for me. Like it's hard for me to get into the gym, especially as the older I get and in the quote unquote busier I get. I don't like the word busy. I like the word productive. But I feel like sometimes when I'm busy, I can't seem to get to those more important tasks like my health. I mean, that should be one of the things that I prioritize first. But it's really, really difficult to do that sometimes. But it's the consistency. It's the 20 minutes a day
Yep.
over time that gives us the most productive benefit rather than that 2 hours at once. Even though it makes us feel better, it makes us feel like we're doing something. It's like the tortoise and the hare. Nobody wants to be the tortoise, but
Yep.
it's the tortoise who wins every time. So it sounds like you're having this awakening and you're starting to work on those consistent things that you can sustain. And if we assign that positive meaning to it, like you're talking about, it helps us stay consistent, I think. What do you think?
Oh, 100%. So my coach, one of the other things he did was, and I started with him in October 1st, he started with me just walking a mile. So at the time I was not active at all. I did probably 4 or 5,000 steps a day. Was working about 10 hours a day, sitting mostly at a desk. And he said, I just want you to walk a mile a day. So I said, okay. So then I wanted to walk a mile and a half. Okay, no problem. Then he said, okay, I want you to rotate between a mile and a half and two. I said, yep, I'll do it. And now I'm up to 2 miles a day. I do 2 miles a day and I take one rest day and I'm really loving it. And I'm probably going to stick to 2 miles for a little while. It takes about 50 minutes to an hour, but I get so much done. I actually love stacking other things with that. So sometimes I'll do a walking meditation. Sometimes I'll walk and listen to a book. Sometimes I'll walk and take a meeting I have to take anyways. And I just tell people, hey, I'm going to be heavy breathing over here. Just so you know, I'm going for my walk. They don't care,
Yeah,
but it's such a
exactly.
great way for me to get what I need to. And people support you. The other thing I've done is I started posting about my journey on my Instagram stories. Now, I was not a big Instagrammer or Facebook person. I have a lot of Facebook friends, but I wasn't really active in posting or sharing my journey. And so I started doing that. And he said, just take a picture of one of your meals a day. So as I was taking a picture, I'm like, okay, I need to be making better decisions because everybody's seeing what I'm posting. And I wasn't like posting a thing of veggies and then eating a piece of pizza. I actually was eating what I posted. And you could tell it was funny. I had people come up to me afterwards and they're like, oh my God, I love seeing the progression of your meals and how much healthier they're getting over time. Because I started to realize, like, oh, that meal I posted a month ago actually made me feel crappy,
Mm.
or, wasn't as healthy as I thought it was. Let me make a tweak.
It seems like what gets measured gets done. And in a way, you're measuring the the status of what goes into your body, right? Because you can
Yep.
always go back and log that. You're inviting others to stand in agreement with you for whatever goal that you want. So a lot of people, I think, steer away from Instagram. One, because they don't like attention. Two, they don't know what to say. Or three, they don't know how to ask for the help that they need. And it seems like you're approaching it in a really cool way, and that you're asking a community to support you. And
Yep.
in exchange, you would support somebody else and what they're doing,
100%.
it seems
And I'm
like.
holding
So
myself accountable. And what's crazy is at first I was like, yeah, but I'm not getting many viewers, like a couple hundred viewers. Um, People, maybe one or two likes, comment here
mhm.
and there. But I actually went up north probably about a month ago and I saw so many people because I had so many different events to attend, mostly people in the real estate industry. And I probably had 30 people come up to me. I'm loving your walks. I love everything you're doing, that you're sharing your food. You've really inspired me to take action. I started walking last week. I started eating healthier. And I'm like, oh, thank you. That's awesome. So what's crazy to me is something people need to remember is you just don't know who's watching or who you're inspiring or who is taking action because of you. Because my goal is, and what I want my legacy to be is, you know, when it's time for me to meet God in person, hopefully later, not sooner, I want people to be like, oh, I remember this one time Katie did this and she actually inspired me to do that. Or Katie gave me a piece of advice that, caused me to step out of my shell and I met my husband, whatever. I want it to be a crazy story of one little thing they did that changed their life.
Well, I'll tell you one. When I saw you post that you were going to quit drinking alcohol, I thought to myself, wow, I mean, that's a big goal. That's a line in the sand. And I mean, I've always joked that I never had enough money to drink as much alcohol as I wanted. I'm kind of a snob. I had the chance to bartend when I was, 21, 22 years old. So I learned as I learned alcohol. I learned the high end things, and I learned to mix, alcohol kind of appropriately. And this podcast was called Cocktails and Dreams because I mean, cocktails are just small recipes for success. And
I
what I
love that.
found was that when I bartended, I usually made like 7 drinks, like all the time. And then there was these odd ones that you would have to make. And so there's like these few recipes that everybody subscribes to. And then there's these sort of off-brand recipes that people have heard of, but don't really quite know what they are. And so I wanted to kind of, connect with people sometimes over a drink. But what I found was that what was more important and was more connective was the common experience that I had with the person that I was interviewing. I mean, the alcohol can be a ceremonial thing, which is what it was supposed to be. But what I found is that I was connecting with people like this. I mean, I'm drinking water right now,
Yep.
but hydrate and dreams just
Me
didn't
too.
have this
It's
good of a
hydrate and
ring to
dreams.
it.
Doesn't
We're
have as much swing
hydrating
to it.
and talking about dreams, and it just didn't have the same ring. But I realized when you started that journey of not drinking, I thought to myself, a lot of times I don't even know why I do it. It's more of a habit, and I
Oh,
don't
I
like.
don't mean to interrupt, but
Yeah,
that just like resonates so much with me because
talk
I'm
about it
sure some people thought I was a closet alcoholic when I did this post, but I really just drank more frequently because I felt like that's what you do. You're out with a friend, you have a drink. You're at a networking event, you have a drink. You're at a brunch, you have a mimosa, whatever. It just the amount or that I was doing anything wrong when I was drinking. I wasn't out of control. I wasn't not myself. It was pretty authentic to me. I just felt like I was drinking for no reason and couldn't really put my finger on it. Keep
for a lot of
going.
people that I know. It's you get home from the office and you pour half a glass of wine and you start on dinner just as a way to kind of decompress from the day. But there's got to be a substitute that you can put in there. And what I do at the beginning of every year is something called 21 Days of Prayer, which is actually led by a church in Birmingham, Alabama called Church of the Highlands.
Mhm.
And our church and churches all across America, they sort of do this together as a
Yep.
collective way for us to tithe the first 21 days of the year to God and to create better habits and to get in the word and to become other focused. I mean, try praying for an hour. Like you run out of things to pray for in the first 15 minutes. And so you're forced to think about other people and to take in prayer requests and to become that other focused person. And during that time, I quit drinking and things like that. And I realized how I didn't really miss it. Have you found the same thing? I mean, or are you doing a hard and fast rule where I'm not drinking at all? Or
So yeah, for me, I'm better with the yes or no. I've
gotcha.
always struggled with like moderation. I love going full steam with
Yeah.
things. So for me, as of right now, it's a no for the future. I am so clear on my thoughts and how I feel, and I love not drinking anymore. And that does, I actually love being around drinkers. They're fun. We have a good time. My husband still drinks. He drinks much less just because I'm not drinking. So
Hmm.
naturally, he's drinking less if I'm not drinking alongside of him. But I actually said last week, I turned to my husband and said, I miss drinking. But you know why I said that in that night? I was having kind of a tough day. We were at this Mexican restaurant. They had tequila flights. Tequila used to be one of my drinks of choice. And I was like, man, I could really just go for a margarita and separate right now. The reason I said I miss drinking is because I wanted to just escape from things that day.
Mm.
I just was looking for an escape. And I realized that's actually why I quit, is because I don't want to look for a way to escape. I want to figure out what's going on so that I can work through it. And then I can live a life that I don't want to escape from.
What are some ways that you've found that work for you to work through
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Or the
Walking has been huge. So I find when I don't get my walk to start the day that I just feel more rushed and kind of stressed. So that's been a great replacement. So sometimes if I'm getting frustrated, I'll go for a walk, meditation, even just sitting there for 5 minutes. Just I do this thing called box breathing where you breathe in for 4, you hold for 4, you release for 4. But like I'm just kind of paying attention to my breathing, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's like, oh, I feel so much better. Because you can't, I always tell my team, you can't solve a problem in the same frequency that problem is created. And
Mm.
so we do this thing where a problem comes up in our business, fire, 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 all hands on deck. We need to fix this, fix this, fix this. And I actually tell my team, I want you to step aside from this for a minute. We're going to figure it out, but we need to step aside. And you just tell people, we're working on this. We're going to regroup and we'll reach back out in an hour. When you are frantic trying to figure something out, oftentimes you can miss something really easily. This happens with my 9-year-old all the time. So I have 2 girls, one of them's 9. She'll literally, it's this image of her standing in front of the door, like, Mom, the door won't open. And I'm like, did you do the knob or anything? Or oh, okay. So you've been pulling it. Did you try pushing it? It might be one of those doors you push, you know? It's like they don't even think about it. They're so frustrated and just clouded by frustration that they can't see the solutions right in front of them. And I find that when you step away from a problem, you either figure it out or you realize it's okay that we're not going to figure it out and move on. You
Yeah,
know?
we want the results so bad. We want to go outside so bad that we just stop and realize that, hey, this is way easier to get outside if I just take a moment, figure out how to operate this, turn the knob, push the door, and now I'm outside.
Yeah, but when you're in a really clear zone, you're like, "Oh, let me turn the knob. let me try pushing it. Did I try pulling it? Like you're just thinking in such a different way where you're open to all possibilities of how you can solve this. But when you're in frustration, like I said, your door actually, or your foot could be on the lever that opens the door and you're the one keeping it shut. It's
Oh,
just, it's so easy to think about it like that because when we're quote unquote happy or living with ease, I'm sorry, with ease, just things flow so effortlessly and it's easy to figure out things. I have clients who come to me, well, I don't know what we're going to do here. I'm like, okay, well, what do you want to do? Do you still want the house? Are you worried about buying it now because there's this issue with the septic? Is the seller willing to address it if she or he fixes it? Does that mean you want to move forward? Like, what do you want to do?
great
And so sometimes,
questions.
yeah, just have those questions or ask those questions. And that to me is what also makes a great person in business is someone who just asks those questions. Well, what do you want to do? What are you hoping for? I even ask my clients sometimes, if you could wave a magic wand, what would this look like? Like, what would happen here? That kind of shows me what they really want inside, right? If there's a home inspection that went bad, well, I would buy the house still, but all these problems would be fixed. Great. Let's see if that's an option.
Yep. Home inspections do create a lot of anxiety for people. They do. That's a great example. And I always told people when when I was educating my clients, and then as I became an independent real estate broker and started training real estate agents, I would always say that regarding home inspections, especially if you don't have the right home inspector, I mean, the right home inspector can freak somebody out because it's such
Yep.
a perception-based business. And I've had people say, hey, look, I've had contractors say, I'd rather go in behind a termite than a jack of all trades because you can predict what a termite's going to do.
I
And
love
so,
that.
like, when we would get termites on an inspection report, people would freak out. But it really just means it's another layer of discovery. It's like, hey, we
Yep.
can continue to protect your earnest money. We'll just let them know we need 3 more days, get a specialist in there, find out what's up, and then move forward. And I would always say that I would like to drop things into 3 separate buckets when it comes to home inspections. And one of them, that first bucket, is let's run screaming from this house. Like this was a great insurance policy for us. Let's use the policy, let's exit the contract, let's move on. That second one is the immediate maintenance. Like we got a dripping sink, or we have a wire that's, flinging around, or we've got some
Smoking.
kind of electrical problem. Those type of immediate maintenance items need to be addressed by a seller. And then we've got deferred maintenance. And deferred maintenance, you might, depending on how motivated the seller is, get them to kick you down some cash. If not, then hey, that's just one of those negotiation points. But explaining it away and by educating somebody and giving them the opportunity to decide what it is they want to freak out about really helped me manage my business. And so I love that you do that for your clients too, by just kind of keeping it real. We forget that we live in this world all the time.
Hmm.
And it's easy for us to not have emotion surrounding these things. But for people that are buying houses or investing in real estate, or they're new agents in the business, we tend to want to, let our anxiety get the best of us. When in fact, really, it's best, like you said, to take a breath,
Yep.
look at the door handle, and then push. You
Yeah,
know?
exactly. And figure out
Yeah,
how
I
to get
love
that
that.
door open. And
I love
I
that.
do a lot of that. So a lot of my realtor partners have worked with me for so long because I started coaching them as well to help them grow their business because when their business grew, my business grew. And so it
Mm.
made a lot of sense. And so that's what I'm focusing on in Florida as well. So if you have any agents down here looking for that partnership, I love coaching agents because I know the industry. And ultimately, I get to feed two businesses at once, which is amazing. But there's a lot of little things that realtors do to get in their own way. And it's not their fault. It's just that they're not trained properly in most cases, right? That's one of the reasons that I'm sure you went to EXP is there's so much training available. And that's not the same for every brokerage. Education is power. Like knowledge is power. It's like that. Well, I think it was a kids show when I was growing up, but it had this little thing that was like knowledge is power. And you were like, yeah, so get it.
Yeah, it truly is. Yeah, like the more you know, right? It's
Yeah, the
like,
more you know.
yeah,
Exactly.
that's true. The information is powerful. And you're right. I did move to EXP because it automated the brokering for me and it automated the accounting for me. And I found myself stuck in my office doing those things like nonstop. And so it freed me up, it released me to go out and be a coach and a trainer and to see the needle move in people's lives, which is why I was put on the planet. I wasn't put on the planet to have broker to broker conversations
Right.
or to deal with attorney, calls or to be locked in my office doing administrative tasks. I was put on the earth to go out and find people that are underappreciated by the world and believe in them more than they believe in themselves, and to give them the courage to move forward and make an effective change in their life so that they can become a better husband, a better wife, a better
Yep.
spouse, a better partner. Because when we do that, we become better human beings in general. And then now we're contributing to the world that our kids are growing up in. And I felt like that's where I had the biggest impact. And you're right, EXP gave me the ability to meet far more people
Yep.
than I have ever met in my entire life. And those masterminds are free. I mean, they're all part of that. As an independent broker, I had nowhere to go. I had to go learn, educate, connect. But I'm literally, messages away from people who have already had that problem,
Right.
right?
It's amazing. And especially I find with agents, whether they've been in the business for a long time or not, they're always having to adapt, as I am in the mortgage industry as well, especially right now with everything coming down with commissions, right? The
Hmm.
industry is going to change. So you have to be educated on how that change appears so that you can be proactive. But that doesn't mean that buyer's agency has to go away. That just means you have to figure out how to make it work based on whatever changes come down. And you need people to understand what that means. And those conversations are things that agents need to know how to have with their clients too, because people get so worried about having these conversations, especially related to money, but people want to pay people what they're worth. And if I have someone who's helping me in a situation, I've learned over time, I want to pay them what they're worth because I'm getting something from them. Everything is an exchange, right? They're getting something from me and we're all happy in the process. And it doesn't have to be hard. Everyone makes things so hard. I had a friend of mine who was in real estate and she was saying how she hates taking calls after a certain time. And I said, I get that, but that's the energy behind what you're doing. You're answering in anger, right? So, what would happen if you answered super excited and grateful that that client is coming to you, but schedule a time to talk with them outside of what time you're protecting? So most clients in real estate, they work. We love people who work and can pay their mortgage. That's super helpful for us when we get them
Yeah.
approved, right?
Yeah.
So that can lead to calls after hours. And I get so excited. I take a 3-minute call. I'm like, hey, it's so great to connect with you. I'm tied up right now, but let's schedule a time so that we can go over what your needs are, see how we can fit into the scenario, and we'll work from there. What's your schedule like tomorrow? And I just make sure I'm setting it up a time that works for my schedule. I could easily be mad, not answer that call, answer it and say, "Oh, great to hear from you, but I'm really pissed about it." And that energy is going to be felt all around. And so I think it's important to protect your time, but also be grateful for leads that you're bringing in. And I find that a lot of people aren't that way. They're kind of one or the other. They're like answering and spinning their wheels, but like not protecting their time, or they're protecting it so much that it's in a rigid way where they're frustrated when they get reached out outside of that. It's like they don't know your schedule. If I need something, I'm going to reach out when it's convenient for me because I'm the one who needs something.
Right. Right.
That's no offense. If someone tells me they're working certain hours, that's great, no problem. But don't get mad at me because I didn't know your schedule because I don't know you and I just need your service.
Yeah. Manage people's expectations was one of the
Yes.
first massive business paradigm shifts that I had. And
Yep.
it's just communication. I love what you do. You make them feel valued by picking up the phone. You're excited. You're always excited to hear them. And in my training, I call that studying under master dog. So imagine like a Chinese zodiac, and like the dog being the year of the dog kind of a
Yeah.
thing. Well, so the dog is a master, right? And if you're a new real estate agent, and a lot of times we have to go back to the fundamentals.
Hmm.
And so if you're a new real estate agent, I've always trained like study the dog and do what the dog does. Like the dog, when you show up to your home, the dog is always like, oh my gosh, you're back. Like you remembered where I live. Thank you so much for
I
being
missed you,
here.
missed you, missed you, missed you, missed
You
you.
have returned. My tail is wagging like I'm visually showing you. I am so excited to be here. And by the way, I'm not going to say no. Like if I were to say to the dog, hey, did you want to go play the ball right now? Did you want to go to the park? The dog would be like, yes, I do. I definitely do. So I always told agents, especially we live in a second home market with a gigantic lake and everybody complains about having to take people all the way around the lake for a tour. And I'm like, you should be thankful that you're taking them on a tour. Like you're learning the market, you're out in the marketplace, and you should say yes. And how else can I help you?
Yep.
Go out there with them, bring more listings. You know, load them up with so much value that they feel great being around you, and they will choose you. And for those people that are like, you know what, they came down 2 weekends in a row and they didn't buy anything. You know, it was just wasted time. And I thought, we've got to get those words out of our vocabulary.
Yep.
There is no such thing as wasted time, because at bottom line, at the minimum, you learned 14 properties that day that you knew nothing about. And now you can speak intelligently about those properties when somebody calls, because you've got product knowledge, because
Yeah.
you got out in the field. So I love the fact that you're really kicking people in the teeth when it comes to their mindset,
And
because
I'm not trying to give them a hard time. I want to be clear. I'm not saying that there's times I don't get a call and I'm trying to relax and I'm annoyed by it. When that happens, I say to myself, you know what? Maybe I need a break right now. Because if I'm getting to that point where I'm not grateful for business coming in, then that means that I'm probably a little burnt out. And so maybe I need to take a little time down.
yeah, I kind of realized this. It was a story I was watching, The Wolf of Wall Street, the other day, and he was Jordan Belfort was character in the movie, was telling a story about his dad, who was like such a frustrated man, and like he's like trying to watch The Equalizer, and it's the 80s, and like you can't pause live TV, and like somebody would call during The Equalizer, and he didn't want to pick up the phone. He's like, who feels like they have the right to call my house at 6 o'clock in the evening? But yet the minute he answered the phone, it was like, hello, yes, hi, cheerio, yes, very good. And then he hangs up and he's like, oh, I missed it. I missed the scene. But I could see how somebody who is used to switching themselves over into kind of a feeling of gratitude or a positive mindset, you just sort of get trained that when the phone rings to fall into those patterns, it seems like.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, if you're really shifting your energy and happy to answer the call, that's different. But most of the time I find that you're not. It's just like you're frustrated in the background and pretending is just like lying. So that energy is going to be felt on the other side. And you might not realize it. I was super polite. Did you read this email? I could not have been any more nice. But whatever you felt behind that email is really what came through, or behind that call. Because I'm a big believer in energy as well. And the energy we do things is what people feel, whether we realize it or not.
It's true. Pretending is a form of lying. I've never really heard that said that way.
Yeah, you're
That's
lying to yourself.
fascinating. Yeah, because if you're pretending, I can see how, if you fake it till you make it, you're kind of like, let's talk about that.
My coach has a saying, and it's be until you become.
Okay, yeah.
And I love that a lot better, because I didn't realize, this is going to sound weird, but I used to be kind of a pathological liar about stuff that didn't really matter, wasn't relevant. And it would
Okay.
be stupid, like, oh no, I only had 5 M&Ms. What are you talking about? Oh no, I really had 15. Or,
Uh-huh.
oh, sorry, I'm late. I got stuck behind a bus, but I didn't actually get stuck behind a bus. So it was like, it sounds weird when I say it out loud, but there was a time where I was like, why am I lying about the stuff that doesn't matter? And I said, I'm going to make a conscious effort to not lie. That's when I realized how much I actually did it. Silly
Wow.
things too. Someone gives you a compliment, you give them a compliment back that you actually didn't mean. If someone gives me a compliment and I want to give them a compliment back, I find something that I actually mean to compliment the back. And if I don't, then I just say, thank you so much.
I know so many people are so bad at receiving,
Yeah.
and especially high achievers as well. And givers are especially bad at receiving. And that's such great advice, Katie, because that's one of the best things that you can do when somebody gives you a compliment, is just say thank you.
Yeah. And I
Like,
anchor it in too. I actually consciously, whenever I get a compliment, no matter what it is, or if someone does something, like if I'm getting in a taxi and the driver gets out to open my door, I actually like to anchor it into in my heart. And I just say, thank you so much for doing that. That was something that took a long time to figure out because I wasn't a great receiver.
So many people are not that we don't really want to give compliments sometimes. I mean, I know I don't sometimes because I'm afraid how somebody's going to take it. Like
Yeah,
it's awkward when you compliment somebody because they're awkward about it. And I know I've done that for so many people. So I'm trying to be really a whole lot better about just saying, "Hey, thank you,"
yeah,
and it really helps. And because people want to know that they're doing something good by giving you a little bit of affirmation. I love your
absolutely.
holistic approach. I really do. So let's talk about, so is the majority of your business still, you said, in the Northeast and like you're
Yes.
growing it? And then we're talking about your mortgage business right now.
Yes. So, yes, I really haven't released much with coaching. I just started doing weekly lives in my group, the Katie Collective.
Hmm.
So it's KATIE and then collective with a K. So KOLLECTIVE. I'll make sure you link that when when we post this
We
episode for
will. We'll have
people.
that linked in the show notes. So don't
Perfect.
worry about that. And this is on
Okay.
Instagram or Facebook. Where do people find
It's
this?
through Facebook. It's a
Okay.
Facebook group, and I go live
Gotcha.
in the group once a week, and then once a month I do this mini course to where I teach something relevant. So last month I taught 7 steps towards creating your ideal day, and it's like a 30 to 45 minute kind of mini course. I don't like to call it a master class because to me master classes have so much more value. They're a little bit deeper.
Hmm.
But I wanted to be able to bring this material to the masses and allow people to get to know me as I released more coaching programs. I just haven't released many coaching programs. So I still have clients in the mortgage industry. And I have realtor partners who predominantly have more of like an exchange where they give us all their business and I help them grow theirs. But I'm going to be doing more paid programs related to coaching over the next, you'll see more over the next month or two.
Okay, great. So you're sort of building a community of
Yeah.
like-minded people that you will, make offers to. But for now, it
Yes.
sounds like it's just this organic place for people to come and share and get
Yeah, and
value
my goal
from.
is to always keep it be a free resource for people. It's just if people want to go deeper, like, hey, I love what you're saying. I want to know more on how this can pertain to me. The group coaching and then the one-on-one coaching is really meant to help people specifically with whatever they're struggling with or whatever their goals are.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so how do you envision yourself then as a coach? Are you looking for clients that are monthly clients, like a certain number of clients?
Yeah. So this is something I've been thinking about recently because I was like, no, I don't want to just do real estate agents. And that's not what I'm looking for. And then the more I realized, oh, shoot, that's actually who I can help the most.
Hmm.
And I really enjoy it because it goes hand in hand with my experience as a loan officer. So, really, I'm looking for realtors who have seen success, but maybe right now they're struggling to figure out what's next as they're adapting to changing interest rates and the changing market and things that may come down with commissions and they just don't know where to go next. So more likely a more seasoned agent. I love working with brokers because I love helping their newer agents too and creating a system to where they are set up for success. So for example, that 7 steps to creating your ideal day, I'm actually going to be doing it in a real estate office for their agents to help because I find one of the biggest issues with agents is people come into this industry because they want more flexibility, but they don't realize they still need structure, some sort of structure, right? You can be flexible, but you have to have a guideline. And so helping them create their ideal day around what they're already scheduling, whether they're a mom, I work a lot with moms. So that's definitely my ideal clientele because I help them manage things like bringing the kids to gymnastics or who's putting them on the bus or bringing them to school. Like those are things you have to incorporate in your day, but you can do so and then plan your rest of your day around that. So really finding that balance, like, okay, great, making sure I have at least, 2 hours a week set aside for laundry and how am I managing that? Managing the daily activities that you're supposed to do along with this new business or this business that you're struggling with and how you can get better at managing that.
That's phenomenal. Because I think people have this idea of business success and we have to do these things. So therefore I have to neglect all of these things and that creates stress because
Yeah.
the timeline of when this should have been done, laundry has passed and now my kids don't have any clean underwear. And yet I'm trying to go out and,
And
and
you're like,
provide for
just
them.
smell it, just smell it. You'll be
It'll be
fine.
fine. It'll be fine. So it's great that you're offering people permission be a mom or to be a dad and to be a professional because we're both at the same time And a lot of times we feel like we have to be one or the other, or we have to feel like we have to balance, and we have to have this work-life balance, work-life integration. But one of the things that I've realized, so just all of a sudden in my life, is that there's no such thing as balance. It's an illusion. It doesn't exist. And like, think of the body posture that you have when
Mhm.
you're balancing. It's not comfortable, right? You're using small muscles and you're sweating and you're trying to keep things from falling, right? Who wants to live that way? I don't want to live that way anymore. And in fact, if I had a stack of rocks in my hand, I would want an empty hand to be able to catch them when they all fall. And that is margin of
Mm.
time, margin of resources, margin of money, margin of love. It's like love is so free. You know what I mean? It's like it costs you nothing to pick up the phone and answer it in a way that would be encouraging for somebody else. Just like you said, I
Yep.
love that you use that example, because that is such a small, easy to, use example. Like Kelly, my wife, um, we walked into a store yesterday. Our lives are crazy. We had 2 hours together yesterday, and so of course we went grocery shopping. That's not a date. It's errand running, but hey, I'll take what I can get.
Yeah,
We
I
walked
totally
into this
understand.
store. We walked into the store, and there was a lady just kind of like this, like this. And Kelly was like, "Hi, how you doing?" And she's like, "Fine." And she was just like the proprietor or the employee of the store, and we
I
both
know you
noticed
can
it.
feel it too. You're like,
We
oh,
could,
okay.
and we're like, "I'm sorry for walking in the store here." I mean, I'm thankful that somebody was working, and I'm thankful that she was there to help us when we were ready to check out. But that energy transfer was apparent, you know. And I think we miss out on those opportunities regularly. I know I do.
Yes. Yes, definitely. And I think so for me, I do talk about a little bit work-life balance. And what I mean by that is truly having a life you live that you don't feel like I need a break from all the time. I'm not saying
Mm,
that you can never go on a vacation or enjoy time with family in a different way, but truly, if I just my everyday day, just live it, like I live a life I love and I enjoy it in general. And that's to me what balance is having a life you don't feel like you need a break from all the time.
I love that. That is beautifully said. I love the way that sounds, and I'm going to write that down and
And I'm going to be
put that
using it as my
and
tagline as
put
a
that.
coach because it's so
I'm going to
important.
be putting that so I can see it right up there every single morning.
Yes.
I love that. And
And think about what that means to you. So, what does that mean to me, right? And for
mhm.
me, that means that I have to pay attention before I get to a point where I'm burned out and that I have to balance, quote unquote, things that are required of me as a parent and things that are required of me as a job. And then also do things that I really love doing. So, my daughter and I have standing dates every Monday night. She sleeps in my bed. We play a game or watch a movie. I do that so that we have that time that she can look forward to. And guess what? I'm not home every Monday. So if I'm not going to be home on a Monday, we move it to a day that works.
Mm.
So it's flexible. And I always tell my kids, you guys have to be flexible. Things change sometimes. That's okay. That doesn't mean you don't have a plan in general, but you have to be able to adapt if things shift that you weren't expecting because we can only control the things that are within our control. And that's how we react and how we create the life that we're living.
That's true. So you've moved your business from one city to another city. Has it been difficult for you to plug in to the new city?
Yeah, so yes and no. I haven't really dove in, but there are things if I were talking to an agent starting in a new city, there are things I would recommend. For
Uh-huh.
example, I'm a big proponent of BNI, and if you can get in as an agent or a loan officer
You
in an
bet.
area that you're moving to get to know other people there, I recommend starting to join chamber events because you want to be ingrained in the area you're going to be living. A realtor is someone who helps build that community, and that means that you want to know who else is in that community doing business and who does a good job of it. Because if someone is going to attend a weekly meeting, whether it be BNI or a chamber meeting or association of realtors, that means they're not going to probably disappear with your money, because why would they? They're going to see you next week. And so to me, you're going to be able to make partnerships with the people that you can know and trust quickly in an area that you're not familiar with.
That's a great advice. You also talked a little bit about leverage. So how have you used leverage or other people, or people or systems have you put in place in your business in order to give you the freedom to expand or,
Yeah.
scale or do more of the things you want to do?
Yep. So I have a team and a lot of them work in the background. I do have one team member, Shane, who's awesome. He works hand in hands with clients, but I get eyes on the loan. The difference is that I don't have to be bound to certain meetings because I'm usually in other meetings. So I don't want to be the one necessarily talking to the client, but I am the one in the background who's taking a look at it, making sure everything looks good because my name is on the pre-approval. My reputation is very strong up north and I want to make sure we get to closing. So I've trained my team to be very self-sufficient, but still support them in the background when I feel like it's needed. And that being said, I don't feel like I have to do that. I feel like I could take a deeper step back if I wanted to. That's just something that I've done as I've trained them because it helps me see these spots that I might otherwise miss. And we do weekly calls to regroup and to train. They're working on some standard operating procedures, which will help as we grow our business and grow our team so that people coming in will know exactly what to do because it was willy-nilly for a long time. And I had to trust too. So for many, many years, I held on to everything with such a tight grip so nothing fell through, but that I was internalizing that stress and I was making my body sick and stressed and just, right before I had got pregnant with my daughter, I was 345 pounds. I'm down to about 300 right now, but like I felt it. I felt it in every area of my body. It was the heaviest I had ever been. I was wanting to sleep all the time. My energy was lacking. I was drinking energy drinks and coffees. I haven't had a single piece of energy today. Now, that doesn't mean that sometimes I don't love my caffeine, but I don't need it to be like this because I'm excited about the day. I was excited to be on your podcast. I'm excited to see what the rest of the day has in store. I love Mondays because Mondays are like kind of a rebirth day where everyone's getting organized and I work weekends too, but like Monday to me is just like always a fresh start. So it's just starting anew and I just really enjoy them.
So really training your team
Yep.
to be leaders of their own position and to
Yes.
trust them to be able to do those things. What was kind of the biggest things for you, if I understand you correctly? Is that right? Am I
Yeah.
missing anything there?
No, no, definitely. And what I also told them is, hey guys, worst case scenario, I'm going to tell you how I would handle it a little differently next time. So I empowered them to handle a situation the way they wanted to without worrying, what if Katie says that was awful? I'm like, I'll
Hmm.
never say that's awful because there's a reason you handled it that way. And that's going to allow me to see sometimes where our weaknesses are too. But if I just tell them what to do every time, they're never going to learn to do things in their own voice.
There's something else about you that I find fascinating, and it's your stand-up comedy experiences. So I want to know, like, why, because this is one of the most terrifying things that, a person can do. And I know because I've done it.
Yep.
Um, and I did some stand-up comedy in my 20s, and it's not, I don't know, I dream about it sometimes, I think about it. But so talk to me about why you decided to do it and how it's been going for you.
Yeah, so it was totally on a whim. I got offered to enter this entrepreneur program for comedy, and it was going to be at the Tampa Improv. And it was like, let's say, I want to say it cost like $6,000 to be a part of this. It was a gentleman who actually was a comedy coach for Kevin Harrington. So I met him through a couple people who are members of the board of advisors, which is a mastermind that you're part of.
Hmm.
And I just was like, man, this is something I've always wanted to do. What are the chances they're doing it in Tampa, which I just moved to? And it ended up being in May. And it was like, it just fit perfectly what I wanted to do. So he helped me come up with this set. It's about 12 to 14 minutes, depending on how fast I talk. But it was so much fun. I nailed it. I didn't do it since then. I've got a couple offers and haven't taken them up on it because just the lead time on prepping for it wouldn't have worked. But I absolutely see this being a part of my business in the future. And I picture using comedy as a way to help people break out of their shell a little bit because when you're laughing and having a good time, you're raising your frequency. If you go do something fun, do you ever realize like you're checking out somewhere and you're laughing and someone's like, wait, I see your shirt. Are you a realtor or you do mortgages? And you're like, yeah, how do you know that? That's crazy. Well, I need one. And it's as simple as that. Have you ever had people approach you if you're wearing something, or they hear you're talking about something and they're like, "Can I ask a question?" When you're in a high frequency, you just start to attract all these clients in a different way, to where you're not grinding or having to call people because they got their credit checked. Like, I don't want that type of business. I want people to have fun. I want them to laugh on the phone with me. And so that comedy skit that I did, which does involve alligators, so it's really amazing. I'm just saying, because moving to Florida, I had an alligator that actually lived in my backyard.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, which was
Terrifying.
it was terrifying, but you start to feel like it's no big deal, which shows that your environment shows you what's normal, right?
Right.
And that's the same with people. Do you want to be with people who are all struggling and unhappy, or do you want to be with people who actually really love their lives? They're in great relationships and they have a great relationship with their kids. I surround myself with people who I feel like have a life that is reflective of what I want in mine.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
What kinds of things did you learn in the program? Was it like how to open, or like icebreakers,
Yeah,
or
so he did a lot of callbacks.
okay.
So for example, I did this little part of my set was shopping at Ross. Have you ever heard of this department store Ross? It's
Oh
really
yeah.
it's like a cheaper Marshalls kind of.
Yep.
And they don't have them really as much up north. And so I kind of did this whole thing about, I told the realtor, as long as it's near Ross, we'll be in good shape. And then later in the set, I talked about this $55,000 brand immersion I did it was in Nashville in Ireland, and how someone complimented my outfit. And I was like, "It's Ross." So like the callbacks to the previous jokes
Yeah.
were really fun. Must have picked that one up at Ross kind of
Nice.
thing. So that
Love
was
it.
really fun to learn. And also how you really have to break it down and like use emotion to tell the story too. So, I would share these funny things. We started this log so that we would share funny things that happened to us or that we were dealing with, and then we would just take it to kind of the next level. So it was really fun to see what I came up with ideas and how he turned that into actual content.
That's awesome. Well, I think it's phenomenal that you did that. You're creating new neural pathways. You're
Yeah.
challenging yourself in a huge way, which is great, especially if you're going to be coaching people. Like you
Yep.
need to be leading from the front, which you are totally doing. And I love that. And it sounds like you're still, kicking butt in mortgages,
Yeah.
and
Keeping really
now
busy.
you're growing this. Is there anything else that you want to talk to people about that we haven't had a chance to talk about yet?
I think just people believing in themselves and making sure that they're surrounding themselves with people who do the same is really, really important. I was fortunate enough that early on in my mortgage career, I was about, I want to say 4 years in, I aligned with two top producers in their branch. And I didn't realize just how much that changed my life. And
Mm.
everyone around me always believed in me, but with limitations because of what they believed. So it was like, oh, yeah, no, you can totally be successful, but you're not going to make $1 million or anything. That's okay. And what do you know? I aligned with those people. I ended up making $1 million, but it's because the people around me, they all had great intentions, but they just weren't where I really saw myself. And so if you find yourself in those positions where you're around all these people that you no longer feel aligned to, or you no longer feel like they have a place in your life, send them off with love a little bit and find a new circle. And I'm not saying you have to be like, "Hey, I don't want to be with you anymore," not be friends with you, but find other people to be around more, and naturally that progression will happen to where you're elevating yourself because of the people around you.
So who do you look for in mentors?
So when I'm looking for a mentor, it really depends on what my goal is. So right now I have two different coaches. One is a spiritual coach and one is still more tactical, like here's do XYZ. And after you meet with them, send this letter and here's the template for it. So I always like to have a combination of both, someone who can help me see outside of what I'm struggling with, and then someone who actually gives me these finite tools like, here, do X, do Y, do Z, and you'll see success. So I like to have a combination of both because I think that two-pronged approach is really important, because
Mhm.
some of the things are tactical, but if you're not doing them for the right energy, then you're not going to see the results.
That's true. And I've noticed that there's a kind of a stark contrast between a coach and a mentor. And it's taken me a long time to realize this. And it's like the coach has the tactics that I need to succeed. The
Yep.
mentor has the life that I want to live. And
Yes, I
so
love
they
that
they
separation.
both have patterns. So any thoughts on like thinking about mentors rather than coaches? Like if there's somebody out there that has the life that you want to live, how do you engage with that person?
So I ask them questions like, "Hey, I love everything you're doing." I love complimenting people because I feel like people don't say what they're truly thinking a lot. They're like, "Oh, well, I don't know what to tell them. I don't know them." I'm like, "I don't care." So I just say, "Hey, I love everything you're doing. Would you be open to chatting more about, what it is that made you so successful?" Or if it's someone like really elevated that I don't really know, it's like, "Hey, do you recommend any books that have helped you, or have you been in any podcasts recently that I could listen to, or,
Mm,
whatever I can take from them?" I think podcast is a great example of something that is out there for the masses that can really teach you about who people are. And also, most of them, you're able to listen to at no cost. So there's really low overhead there. And just like joining a group they're part of, or I can be a little bit of a stalker. It's totally fine. So if there's someone I really want to be introduced to, I might even just ask, "Hey, does anyone know this person? I really want an introduction." I might find a mutual friend on Facebook. So I'm a little bit of an investigator too, so I can take it to the next level. But people, especially, we put these people on a pedestal, and what I try to realize is they were just like me at least at one time. Wherever they are now might be a little bit different, but if they don't want to like help me or support me or whatever, like that's fine too. That's
sure.
great. Like I know
Yeah.
whatever happens with purpose. I say that all the time. I do feel like everything happens with purpose, even the little things, sometimes the stuff that you're like, "Well, that was weird, not sure what that meant." And we don't have to know exactly what it means, but know that it happened exactly the way it was supposed to.
Well, speaking of purpose, one of the things that I like to do when I find somebody who has that life that I want to lead is I ask them, what does their morning routine look like? And what
Mm,
does their evening ritual look like? Because those are purposeful activities that that person implements daily at the most important times in their day, right? To
mm.
set them up for success or to set the next day up for success. And I've really discovered a lot of great things. And um, because we don't just accidentally succeed, right?
Yep.
We purposefully succeed. Of course, some of us do. I suppose maybe we're at the right place at the right time. But I mean, even when I got in the short-term rental business, I had so many agents. When this business actually popped, I mean, I got in the short-term rental business before Airbnb existed, and just started to learn and recognize patterns, and just I started consuming everything that I could consume on this so that I could become my local expert. And then when the market finally took off, like 10 years later, people would actually pull me aside and say to me, like, "Hey, Jeremy, what you really timed that just right, didn't you?"
You're like, "Yes, I'm a genius
I
and I can
sure
see the
did. Took me
future."
10 years to time it. Well, Katie, it's been such a joy talking to you today. And I'm so thankful that we got a chance to do this in a real purposeful way. The first time that we talked, we just kind of did a discovery call with each other. And I'll never forget. I was in the woods, and I'm working on this real estate development in Branson, Missouri, this lakefront real estate development. And we had, I mean, we're currently in a lawsuit over it because when I bought the property, some people down at the area put up a gate, and we had to go through this long process of restraining orders and then a legal process, a 2-year legal process, just to be able to access my own land. And the judge had just given us the right to pour a little parking pad down there. And so I had a skid steer showing up, and I had gravel showing up that day. And I was like back in the woods kind of talking to you because I didn't want to miss an opportunity to get to know you, because we started at BA about the same time.
Yep.
And just really looking forward to, and you know how BA is, it's like a wedding reception. It's like you don't get a chance to talk to everybody, and you're like, where did
That's
the
such a
time
great
go?
description, yes.
Yeah. So I'm really thankful that we got a chance to kind of circle back
Me too. Thank you
and
for
hang out a
having
little
me. I
bit.
really appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks for all the great advice. I know we're going to help some people with this podcast. And hey, if you guys want to get to know Coach Katie, we'll have access to that in all of our show notes here. And so connect with Katie on her Facebook group. And Katie, I'd love to have you in and chat with the Worley Real Estate Network team sometime as well.
Yes.
We're constantly sewing into new agents and liking new people to come in, because we're basically an academy. Like I said, we believe in people more than they believe in themselves, and so that's the group that we are. We try to just stand in agreement with the things that people want to see manifest in their lives. So um,
Amazing.
we'll be doing that for you as well. So stay in touch, and
Sounds
we'll talk
great.
to you soon. Well, a big thank you for listening to the end of our podcast. I know your time is valuable, and I hope you got a few takeaways that are going to help you get a greater return on that time. I know you will. And if you did enjoy it, I'd sure appreciate a share or a comment. Feel free to subscribe for instant access to new episodes and offers. There's also a ton of free content and ways to learn more and engage more at WorleyRealEstateNetwork.com. Until then, we'll continue to bring you recipes for success and real stories from real people who, like you, are living out your divine purpose. And hey, God loves you. No matter what happens, don't give up.